For many years, if people would ask me, I would describe myself as having really no creative abilities. And probably the truth of the matter was, I was really saying that I did not devote any of my time or my energy into what I saw as creative activities. If I'm being honest, in those younger years, in fact, I probably thought that creating for the sake of creating was kind of a self-indulgent thing, that there were so many other things that the world needed from us that taking time to just learn how to paint or do some other creative activity seemed like it could be better spent in some other endeavor. The author in the book, The Gifts of Imperfection, which we're exploring over this series, states that there is no such thing as creative people and non-creative people. There are only people who use their creativity and people who don't. But we all have that stream of creativity as a part of our human journey. She goes on to say that the only unique contribution that we will ever make in the world will be born out of creativity. I've had to shift my thinking quite a bit over the last few decades. And in order to do that, we must be willing to let go of comparison. In fact, that was probably one of the things that you can say, oh, this is better than this, so we should invest more time in this than that. It's this idea of better, worse. Comparison is a creativity-crushing paradox of fit in and stand out. It doesn't cultivate the things that allow us to live wholeheartedly, like self-acceptance, authenticity, joy, gratitude. It tends to stifle that inner guidance that shows up because that doesn't come from that place of reason. It rises up out of that heart realm. And if we don't have and value creativity in our life, we tend to only put our faith and our measuring stick purely in the world, and usually what the world dictates as possible and successful. Theodore Roosevelt put it this way. He said that comparison is the thief of joy. Think about that for a minute. When we are spending our time always trying to measure up to some one's or the society's understanding of that time of what's successful, what's positive, we are never in that place of just pure joy. Creativity is the expression of our originality. Can you hear that? We each come with our own creative energy that's unique, that's our unique contribution to share with the world. Creativity helps us stay in that mindful presence because when we're creating, we are in the moment. We are in that space of the realm of all possibilities. We bring into this world something that is original and something that can't be compared. It took, for me, a spiritual awakening in my late 20s, and I wrote here a decade, but I might as well, decades of inner work to get off of the accomplishment and acquisition tract. How many of you have ever been on the accomplishment and acquisition tract, where we're focused, all of our energy is focused on what we can achieve, oftentimes in the realm of what the society we're living in says will be the most indicative of being called successful. Intuition, faith, and trust were not a part of that track, but they were key in helping me shift to a new way and a new understanding and a new measuring stick, if you will, of the value and the accomplishments of my life. In my early adult years, I found myself agnostic, which I think many teenagers do. I came up out of a traditional church and went, nope, can't buy into that. And so I was in this place of I don't know. I didn't necessarily think that there wasn't some kind of creator. I just had no idea what that might look like. And I was, as many would have labeled me, an uber achiever. I was and I still am to some extent. Let's go get it done, whatever it is. And with a few years of IT training, by the time I was 23, 24, was head of an IT department. I had 4 guys working under me. They were all twice my age. They weren't really thrilled about it, but I got results, and I made things happen. And within a few years, I had been promoted. I was working for a software company, had been promoted to the national technical manager, supervising 200 plus technical support people across the United States. I was living large. I had a little red sports car, a little 2-seater. I had all of the outer measurements of living successful. I was the most successful person in my family, making the most money. And by the time I was 27, having worked 50 to 60 or more hours per week for the whole of my stepping into adulthood life, I found myself completely burnt out. That's a young age to be burnt out, but I was there. And coupled with this spiritual awakening I had, I finally started questioning everything. The purpose and the passion that Spirit had didn't seem to match with anything that I had been taught and all that I had done. That there was so much more to life, even though I didn't know exactly what that was yet. And for the first time as an adult, I really wanted to make a difference in the world. And creating wonderful computer systems just didn't feel like that was it for me. I wanted to fulfill whatever that purpose was, but I wasn't quite sure what that was going to be. I wanted to know who I had come here to be. And the only challenge to that is I was clueless. I had no idea, and I didn't even really know how to begin. So I started by asking the question, so if money were no object, if time were no object, if education didn't matter, if I had everything I needed, what would I do? I took some aptitude tests, remember What Color Is Your Parachute? I was reading these books. I was just doing all I could do to try and figure out, because I didn't like living in the question either. I was wanting to have some kind of foundation to move through with this. And I still really felt like I had no clarity around this. And here's where intuition played a central role in my creative opening and in my creative decision making as I move forward in life. So I was thumbing through this holistic magazine, because now that was I was studying, I was learning lots of new things, and I saw this tiny ad for something called New Mexico School of Natural Therapeutics. And what happened for me is there was this rush of energy that came into my body. I read it, and all of a sudden it was like whoosh, and every part of me went, that's it. Find out what that is. I was like, I've never even had a professional massage. I don't even know. Here you want me to go to this school? By the way, I was living in Boston then. This school was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, so it wasn't close by. But I wrote away, and yes, that's what you had to do back then in the 80s. You had to, by snail mail, write away for a catalog, wrote away, looked through it, I went, yes, I think this is it. And so I started thinking, well, how am I gonna get from where I am in this current career path to that? And if I'm not gonna be working, even though I made good money, I spent good money. you know, in your 20s, you don't really think about saving. You're just living life as big as you can. So I had to come up with enough money that I could take off. This was a 1,200-hour program over 6 months' time, so that I could invest full time in that and not have to work. So I started this process of how, you know, just in this creative realm, how could I make this happen? And here's one thing that I, in my creative mind, came up with, and it ultimately came to being.
Filled with glamorous merchandise, fabulous and exciting bonus prizes, including this knockout, a gorgeous 18-karat, $39,000 sapphire and diamond ring. And something the entire family can enjoy, a beautiful San Juan swimming pool. Or you might want this $60,000 log cabin home. Plus thousands of dollars in cash. Over $220,000 just waiting to be won as we present our big bonanza of cash on Wheel of Fortune. And now, here's your host, Pat Sajak.
In person. Thank you, Jack. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us at home. We have a nice group here in the studio. They've all been through the metal detectors, and we're ready to go. Please welcome our hostess. Here's Vanna White. A disturbance has broken out among the players. We're going to find out what that's all about in a moment. We'll check into it later. I hope we haven't embarrassed anyone here. I would never do that. Linda McCall from Epping, New Hampshire.
Right.
What do you do back in Epping, Linda?
Well, I work for a major computer software company there.
Of course you do. And what about away from the job? What do you like to do?
Oh, I like to do lots of things. I like to gamble, go to the horse races, and I promised I'd say a special host to my two nephews, Brandon and Scott Basinzi.
Okay, you'll be the favorite aunt for the rest of their
That's
life.
right.
Nice to have you with us. Linda.
Okay.
300.
I'll take a H.
Yeah, there is an H. But don't say anything else because that sound means time is running out. I'll give the wheel a final spin. I'll ask you to give me a letter to the puzzle. You'll have 5 seconds to solve it. Vowels worth nothing. Consonants word looks good if we can get there. Nope. Not quite. All right, well, let's try again.
5,000, yeah.
How about that? $1,500 apiece. All right. Thing is the category. Linda, it's still your turn. A letter, please.
G.
There is a G, and when it comes up, you'll have 5 seconds to solve it.
Terrible hangover.
Yeah. That's $1,800, which brings your total for the show to not bad at all, $3,250.
Thank you very
Linda,
much.
thank you a lot for being here.
There you go. That was my big TV. Yeah, I was having kind of a bad hair year. I was trying to let my hair grow out. My mother was mortified that I said, oh, I love to gamble and go to the horse races, and didn't mention any other aspect of my life. Didn't mention, you know, that she lived in Michigan. I didn't mention anything else except for that. But I'll tell you, I wasn't nervous until the moment I stepped up there, and I was a little freaked out. So that's all that came. I had something else prepared, but that's what came out. And if you noticed, I won $3,250, which happened to be the exact amount of my tuition to go to school for those 6 months. So if I needed a sign that I was moving in the right direction, there was that. And I did some other extra work and projects. It took a year, but eventually, me and my little red sports car, and visualize this, I had a teeny-weeny little U-Haul, because that was all that this little sports car, and it wasn't even really supposed to pull that, but I did, with a mattress and box springs strapped on top of the roof of the car, and off I went from the East Coast to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And it was an amazing time. I learned so much. I grew a lot. But by the end of it, I realized, well, this really wasn't. Oh, yeah, there's my wonderful graduating class of the New Mexico School of Natural Therapeutics, which still exists in Albuquerque today. In fact, I ran into a woman on a plane about 6 months ago that was a graduate from this school, too, in recent years. And I like I said, it was an amazing time, and yet I knew at the end of it, it really wasn't my purpose. It wasn't my passion. And it would take another 10 years. I got married in there, had a child, lived a little, adulthood life until I walked into these doors in 1998. And then my life took off in a different trajectory. Some might say that my intuition was faulty because it led me to go all the way across country to this school but it was exactly what I needed at the time. And I've seen that it wasn't what I envisioned. It wasn't what I thought I was going to start my new career, and yet it was perfect foundation that was going to take me to the next steps. And that's what we have to know, that sometimes when our intuition comes up and we follow it, even if it doesn't unfold in exactly the way that we envisioned it would, it is there as part of our growing experience and to lead us to whatever is coming next. And that's where the faith and the trust have to be coupled with our creative energy, with the way it shows up for us, because everyone, it may not show up in the same way, and to just understand if we're getting that, if it's showing up for us, then it's there for us to follow, even if we aren't quite sure where it's leading us to. Engaging in creative activities that expand our mind, our heart, that allow us to make friends with our intuition, that expand our perspective, it all is vital in helping us, whether you're in the beginning of this career trajectory or lifespan or you're at the end. It's all part of supporting us in this journey, in getting to that place where we can step into life as our true, authentic selves and live, as this author invites us to do, wholeheartedly. The school that I went to taught many physical modalities, massage therapy, shiatsu, foot reflexology, and many energetic modalities like craniosacral and other things. And we also got exposed to Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese herbal remedies. And probably one of my most spiritual experiences while I was at the school was a segment that we did on music meditations. Music therapy was the training that they had, but to come in and just, the intention when you listen to the music was to become one with the music, to ride the notes, to just allow the music to take you to whatever place. It reminds me of, I don't know how many of you have seen that movie Soul, Disney's movie Soul, but when he's playing the piano, he's a jazz musician, he talks about going to some other place. It takes him to a place that's in between perhaps the other side and earth, but it's that place of pure creativity is what I see it as. It's that place when we are fully immersed in our own spiritual experience of whatever's happening. And so today, we're going to do a little music meditation as we move into this, and I'm not going to speak through this, I'm just going to let you, we're going to do Pachelbel Canon in D, because it's really a great song where you can ride the waves of music. So I just invite you as we get prepared for that, just set aside anything, get yourself to a comfortable place. If you want to close your eyes, you can. It helps sometimes just to let your whole mind and heart go with it, and just allow the music to take you on an inner ride without any expectation, but just become one with these notes as they flow through you. Just take a deep breath in and just allow yourself to come back. Think about when you're doing this, are you following the high notes? Are you following the low notes? Are you following the ones that dance a lot or the ones that are more constant? This is something you can do anytime. For me, if I want to get my creative juices flowing, this is an activity that will allow me to just get out of my head and get into that whole center, heart-centered creative space. You know, many would say that Jesus wasn't very creative. He didn't do art. He didn't build anything. He didn't, demonstrate this genius that many do, creating music or any of those other things. And yet, I think his creativity, and again, it's so unique, his creativity was taking these very difficult concepts of God and of the nature of God and the nature of who we are in God, and breaking them down into a way that the simplest person could begin to grasp and understand. I want to leave with you a story that, a reinterpretation of one of the stories in the New Testament around Jesus that I heard from one of my teachers right now in this integral training that I'm doing, Gary Simmons. We were talking about this, metaphysically understanding this. And he was saying, what if this story of the loaves and the fishes, do you remember this story? Jesus is out, he's been preaching all day, there's a huge crowd. He's like, we got to feed them. You know, it's getting dark. We need to make sure they're fed before we dismiss everyone. And the disciples are going, well, look, all we just got a little bit of bread and a little bit of fish. There's no way we can feed these people. And he blesses it. And then we're told that they were able to share and there was an abundance left over. Amazing miracle. Well, what if the miracle was this? That Jesus instructed those who were around him to take what they had collected amongst themselves, and to start going out into the crowd and saying, if you need some food, take some. If you have some extra food, because likely at least some of the people in that crowd would have traveled with food, if you have some food, add it to the basket. And imagine that as they went through this, that some people were able to take it, some people now being so inspired by the abundance of the universe, of God's love, were able to add some to it. And collectively, as people received and as people gave, that the crowds were all fed, and there was an abundance left over. It's still a miracle. It's the miracle of collaboration, cooperation, living from that place of enoughness. But it didn't mean that it had to come straight out of the ethers and manifest itself, something that most of us don't feel like we can do. It came from that creative energy of, if you have some, give. If you have plenty, then give some. If you need some, then take some. Imagine if we could be in that same space, how our world could be transformed just in that simple act of being in the space where we can give abundantly, and in that space where we can receive when it's ours, when it's necessary for our own moment to receive that nourishment. Something to ponder this week, and another way to know that we can creatively understand the scriptures and all of the challenges of our life if we'll just get out of our boxes and see them in a different way. So our invitation this week is to carve out some time to allow our creativity to flow, whatever that looks like for you. It might be in an outer way. It might be in a way that it gets expressed out, like taking a class or getting back into something that you've always loved to do, but it's gotten put to the back burner with all the business of life. Do something that you've always dreamt of doing, and have faith and trust that as you step into that, it will enliven that creative energy within you. Open your creativity to see something in a brand new way, with a different perspective that perhaps maybe you hadn't considered before. Our creativity reminds us that we live in a universe of abundance. Indeed, in this very room, there is enough love and creativity to change our world. We're grateful for all of the ways in which we receive our good into this ministry. We open ourselves to that creative flow of divine. We don't say it has to come only from here or only from you, or we just know that it can come from so many different channels, and we open ourselves to that, and we live in that space of gratitude and knowing that there's always enough to meet whatever needs show up. We live in that space of abundance, and we're grateful for you as part of those channels and for your continued love and support of this ministry. Today we're going to be passing the baskets, so as we prepare to do that, let us take these gifts, these offerings, or the energy of them, because many people give online. You just feel that energy and just know that it's all flowing through there as we take these into our hands and into our hearts and bless them together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Father, Mother God. There's some affirmations at the back. And so as we go into this day, into this week, allowing our creative energy to guide us to the place where we know we live in a land of abundance, we go, knowing our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.